Hello, hello, and welcome to another episode of Chalking. And this, of course, is where we talk. If it's education, we're talking about it. And today, we're having a chat with a fascinating young man who's taking a look at leadership in education. How young should we even be teaching it? He reckons as early as primary school. Let's get into it. Thornton, so good to have you on the program. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I feel honored.
I'm fascinated at such a young age. Big, huge concept like leadership is one that's kind of grabbed you.
Yeah,
Tell me about the fascination, and then we'll talk about where it fits into education.
awesome. Thanks for the question.
Mm.
I think the fascination came from exploring what we currently have as leadership roles from a young age. We are exposed to leadership in different ways, and being in an environment where leadership happens around you and not necessarily feeling attached to those leadership values, you kind of ask yourself, I'm not captain of my rugby team. What am I doing wrong? Or I'm not on the representative council. What am I doing wrong? And from a young age, I kind of explored those concepts, even though not necessarily understanding it. And in grade 7, I read a John Maxwell book, and some of the content just flew over my head. But I was so interested in exploring that, and as I grew older and I pursued certain leadership positions or in leadership spaces, and through trial and error, I realized that what I'm actually pursuing is to be able to change the environment around me. And I realized that I was the goal was nice and it was very fluffy, the idea to make the world a better place. But I think the vehicle I was choosing was constantly the wrong one, and that led me into this. I'm not going to say rabbit hole, because rabbit hole says it kind of indicates a dangerous place, but I think it's a good. Let's call it a rabbit hole. It's a good place to go down in, because the pit of leadership is so deep, and once you're in it, you kind of realize, okay, what can I learn more about things? And the more you learn about that thing, the more you realize that you don't know and you want to explore. So that's where the fascination came from.
That is interesting. And I mean, education is one of your core pillars, isn't it, in terms of life purpose. So when we think about leadership and education, let's look at it different layers. Let's start with kids, children, in primary school, even high school. Is this something we should be teaching as early as grade 1 even?
Definitely, I think that's where my passion also comes in, because the exposure to a certain concept, and such a heavy concept or topic as leadership, happens sometimes in a way that you don't want it to happen. It's like discovering food for the first time. You want to, there's so many riches, but it's like giving a baby McDonald's or a milkshake. It's going to discover what amazing food there is, but it's not going to be the right nutrition. So even from a young age, you are picked as a class captain, but you're not necessarily told what that means. So what we then perceive as leadership, we see who was picked. Oh, it was the tall kid. Okay, I need to be tall. Who was picked to be the next class captain? It was the talkative one. Okay, I need to be talkative. So kids teach themselves, and they're very smart at doing that. If we don't watch or observe, they teach themselves things based on what our behavior is. So if person A and B gets picked, and now they see, okay, well, to be a leader, I need to resemble the values that they resemble. And I think it can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. So I would definitely. I still don't know how, and that's why I'm still absorbing. I don't know how, but I definitely feel we should start teaching these leadership concepts at an age where they can grasp it, so that they don't just perceive it as being the popular kid or the sporty kid, because those sporty kids grow up and they become leaders in organizations, and there are great leaders that don't discover that they are leaders because from a young age they weren't sporty or they weren't the tall kid. So definitely, I think it does have a place in our curriculum.
And I suppose leadership as well, as you say, it doesn't necessarily mean you're the class captain, but that we can all lead in our different ways. And you don't have to be leading 30 people, you could be leading three.
Yeah.
And that itself is leading and influencing.
Yeah. The word leadership, because we see it as a class captain, it's always a very big word. But Simon Sinek, which is he's quite a leader at the forefront of the whole leadership revolution, and he so what he says was leadership, because it's a servant mindset. You look if you can look to the person on your left and your right and help them to become better, that's leadership. So that's even just two people. That's leadership. If you can apply it to the left and to the right of you, that's leadership. It isn't this big thing and you get the jacket and the cap or whatever you get if you become a leader.
All right, let's move it up a scale a little bit to teachers now. So the setup traditionally is that you have a school principal. He's the leader supremo. Then there's heads of departments maybe, and then the teacher leads the class. Should that leadership question also be put through in how we do education and how we teach and set up our schools?
Definitely, and I'm glad at the moment I'm not linked to any specific school, because I think I might step on a few toes with what I say now. But the leadership model we currently have and the way the world is moving is like trying to hook up two horses to your Tesla because the Tesla's battery is flat. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I need to make my Tesla move. Let's put two horses in front of it. No, it's a very weird model to try and apply. And what I mean with that is that the current model is not serving what the end goal is. So PwC did a study on the people or the students leaving school and the available jobs that there might be. And I think it was by 2030, I'm not sure. And the gap between that, so the children leaving school would be in the 300,000s and the jobs created will be in the 200,000. So immediately you're sitting with that gap, and that happens year on year. So in a school context, we have you have your principal and your traditional model, but we're not necessarily teaching the right things because most of the leadership model currently serves the old model of doing things. So I think we definitely need a revolution in that context, because the way we lead schools at the moment is, if you're in a leadership position, 90% of your job is admin and not leadership or not change or not leading teachers to lead students. So I also don't know what it should look like, but I know it should change.
All right, so we need shifts in thinking there.
Yeah.
Let's move it up even more now. Let's take a look at maybe government, Department of Basic Education, and government in general when it talks about higher education. Do you think that we need to lead differently the way we do education, our systems essentially?
Yes, definitely.
Before we get into it, a quick message from the sponsor of this episode. With over 6,000 videos covering all grades and most subjects, Dork is the most comprehensive online platform for extra lessons, exam revision, and homework assistance. For only 149 Rand a month, you get access to all grades and subjects, and also the ability to create up to 4 profiles under one subscription. They've got your whole family covered. Think Netflix, but for education. So sign up to Dork, click the link in the description below, and use the promo code CHALKING to get 20% off your first month. Let's get back into it.
It's a good question, and I think we all say education needs to change, and it's a very big mandate, and we move budgets towards it, but we don't know what we're throwing our money at, and I think that's a dangerous playground, and it feels like there's a disconnect in that level, and I don't want the comment that I'm making being perceived as judgmental or as being saying there's a lot of stuff wrong, but I think the way we are approaching it, I'm sure you've heard of the new subjects being launched. I think there's around 30 subjects. Once again, I'm also not sure on the amount, but if you look at the gap between what type of subjects they want to implement and what's out there in the workplace and what's happening and how it's evolving, there seems to be a massive disconnect between the Department of Education and who's leading those departments and how it's being run down to schools. And I spoke about admin earlier as well. The admin comes from the top. So if you give me more admin, I'm going to have to do admin because it's my job instead of leading. So I think definitely if the change can happen from there, it will quite obviously filter down to reach who we want it to reach, and that is the learners or the pupils behind the desks.
All right, I want to go back to the classroom now, because you've taught, you're a teacher, you're an educator. What's your advice to teachers in terms of, because there are things that I was taught by my primary school teacher that I've carried through my whole entire life.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes teachers are not fully aware of just how influential they are in shaping lives. And so that's a huge leadership role, isn't it? You're shaping society.
Yeah.
What's your advice to teachers about the kind of conversations they should be having with their kids beyond getting through the curriculum?
Yeah. Once again, before I go there, that's a very good question. The curriculum, I think, in no matter where you, or it doesn't matter where you are, what level, or intermediate phase, foundation phase, but the big word that I want to say is pause. And obviously it comes from the top. You need to finish a curriculum, and I think that desperately has to change. If we stop being tick box teachers, we start to get to something that's very important, and that's where leadership starts, and that is soft skills. So that's why I'm saying pause. There are certain teachable moments in our class that we kind of miss or we shush down because we need to finish. I need to finish topic 2.1, where there's an interaction between two learners or between you and a learner. And when you pause and make it a teachable moment, it teaches a soft skill that automatically develops leadership in those kids' lives. And I would say that to any teacher. Pause in the middle of the teaching to see a teachable moment for what it is. Okay, you bumped over your bottle of water and the water spilled out and you're upset, and I can see that. How are we going to handle it? The water's already on the floor. How are we going to handle this? And now the whole class is watching this interaction. Not saying, shush, just get a mop. Wow. You can make a moment of it, and that automatically, you're not going to remember the math in that lesson that happened. You're going to remember, I remember how the teacher and how that kid treated the whole situation of the water being spilled over. So pause. That's the key word.
Big word. There you have it. Pause. Pause more. Well, unfortunately, we're going to have to pause this conversation. I look forward to having others with you in the future, though. For joining us today, it's been great chatting to you, Thornton.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity.
All right, Thornton Fincham. That was Thornton Fincham, young but really forward-looking in terms of looking at leadership at various levels. And that word pause in class for teachers, I think, is really powerful. Maybe something that we all should do a little bit more of. Pause for a moment. All right, that's it for today's episode. And remember, if you want to see more of these kinds of content, write something in the comment section below and tell us who you want us to be interviewing, talking to, subjects you want us to explore. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so that you don't miss out on future episodes. See you next time on Chalking.